What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
And I'm Tom, the OG Fit Kid, the staple of the Turnbuckle Debate. And J-Bone, I got a message for you, you staple remover. You know why you're the paperclip? Because you're only temporary.
He worked on that all week.
Yeah, the whole week he's been thinking of that.
That's a whole week's worth of thinking. He couldn't wait to get at it.
Yes, sir.
Hey. And our special guest today, we have Steve from the Acefield Retro podcast. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? I appreciate you having me on here. I love the show, so I'm really excited to get into it.
Awesome, yeah, man. We're pumped to have you here. Tell everybody that listens a little bit about Acefield Retro.
Sure. So Acefield Retro is a YouTube channel similar to Turnbuckle Tavern. We mostly focus on AEW Dynamite and WWE bigger shows like the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. We did a day one post reaction show. We also do Sunday night watch-alongs for some old events, so listeners can request different matches. We've done Classic Champions 1987, Royal Rumble 2003, singular matches. So anything like that, we are just talking about old wrestling because Nick, who I do the show with, is a lapsed fan, and he really only started watching intensely in 2018, so he missed a lot. And it's really fun to talk to him about what he missed, and because we watch wrestling through our eyes of long-term fans and we know everything that went on, and we watch it through a lens that's different than the casual fan. He provides that casual perspective that I think a lot of people, it relates to them and resonates in a really great way.
That's awesome.
That's a fun way to look at it, especially I know us being super fans. I'm sure you being a super fan, to hear a casual fan's perspective on it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because we were watching, so he only knows Sting through the eyes of who Sting is now in AEW and what's going on with Darby Allin. And when I told him Sting has wrestled for all this time, he literally had no idea. And showing him Sting as Surfer Sting in old NWA, WCW, it just blew his mind. And it was awesome to just see his reaction live on the air. So if you like those types of things, check us out, Acefield Retro. We're also on Spotify for audio only.
That's very cool. Very cool.
That's awesome, man.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, we all know the format. We know what's going on. I think we should probably, you guys ready to jump into our first question?
Let's do it.
Let's get it. All right. So our first topic of the evening is AEW's roster too bloated. Are there too many hands in the cookie jar?
Well, not now. They just got rid of Cody.
I mean, Tony said he was going to get rid of some of those contracts that he originally signed to get rid of the people that the fans weren't responding to.
I thought it was Peter Avalon, but now it's Cody Rhodes.
Right.
Now, I mean, I guess now we need Fuego 2 gone, right?
Yeah, Fuego 2's gone too.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's not too bloated. I think they just got to do a better job at balancing. And I think things kind of just got disheveled with all the new additions, the second half of last year. And now it's all just kind of falling into place. And it seems like they're building up the stories again. They kind of let the whole Bryan Danielson thing just take over for a while. He was on Dynamite every single week for the first 3-4 months. That's just, he's usually well organized and laid out. And I think that just kind of rattled him a little.
Yeah, I think you're onto something about the additions throwing them off, because I feel like before that last big group of additions, we got Punk, Danielson, and Cole within a 2-week span.
Yeah,
those were dropped on us, 3 major names. I feel like before they came into the fold, Tony Khan had a pretty good system of how he would roll in some storylines, and then you would miss certain people, but then they would roll back into storylines. I felt like they had a good flow, and those 3 huge names being kind of introduced into the main storylines, I think it threw everything off a bit. But
and don't forget, You know,
I think they're a little bit-
Malachi was 2 weeks before that, and he was thrown into a
Right.
major program.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my initial knee-jerk reaction was, yes, it's too bloated, but I'm erring on the side of partly, and I know that's sort of on the fence a little bit, but I think really the problem is it's not enough TV time for a roster as stacked as it is. We're looking at a roster as talented as the 2001, 2002 WWE roster, and I know people think that's blasphemous to talk about and it's AEW fanboy conjecture, but it truly is. If you look at the top stars of this company, you can compare them to any era of the best wrestling that you've ever seen in your life. But I think if they had an extra hour to Rampage, and I know that's not a popular decision because maybe people in our lives wouldn't like it, but a second hour of Rampage would go a really long way of getting people on TV and making it feel a bit more important. But, you know, I think a really good way to do that is I've been saying this, I'm not sure if you've seen the argument for the 6-man championship. I think it's really important to consider creative ways of getting guys on TV. I know the Owen Hart tournament is starting. So having singles matches that mean something is going to be really important to get people on TV, and it can go a really long way of having meaningful matches, not, you know, guys versus QT Marshall. I mean, it needs to be a little bit more important than that.
Now, and Steve, I'm gonna continue on with what you were saying, because I agree a lot with what you're saying about the 6-man and making that you know, the singles matches count. But I think they should do that. Like, and as far as the question goes, do I think they're too bloated? I don't think they're too bloated. I think it's a little bloated, but they need, instead of, and maybe an extra hour of Rampage would help, and it would help. But I think taking the time to make Dark and Dark Elevation, taking that and making it mean more. And I think maybe putting an exclusive title on there, like the 6-man title.
Yeah.
And I think
that could definitely help.
If they're going to do a 6-man title, I think that needs to be a Dark and Dark Elevation exclusive thing. And then make, you know, when there is a huge match for that, then bring it to TV and show people, hey, there's story going on over here too. You need to go over here and watch this content too, because it matters just as much. It's not just squash matches over here now.
Right. I was going to say the same thing, but my note was more, they need to differentiate Dark and Dark Elevation. They seem a little too similar. Elevate Dark Elevation, for lack of a better word. I thought when they first introduced that show that there was going to be a clear separation of the two. And there's a little bit more mid-carders on Elevation, but if you really injected, like Sneed said, maybe a title specific to Dark Elevation, and really crank up the storylines and make that a place for, you know, the Dante Martins, the Will Hobbs to really to ride the main event scene of Dark Elevation in a step up into Dynamite, and have your lower card guys kind of filling out the bottom half of Elevation. Then you've got almost like a tiered system where you're doing the squash matches, introducing people on Dark. They step up to the lower to mid card on Elevation, and then the big boys go up to Dynamite, and keep that rolling. And I agree, like, we had a prediction video, or not a prediction video. It was a prediction episode where we talked about our bold predictions for 2022. And my bold prediction is they would add an hour to Rampage. They have to. That's just, I mean, I know we don't want another hour. Everyone gets real hesitant when you add more wrestling. You don't want it to seem watered down, but I really feel like they have enough talent where they could tell all of their stories a little bit better than only having the 3 hours of national TV.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what's been helping the roster, as bloated as it is Tony allowing the talent to go to GCW, go work the indies, and do those dates and carry that flag across different territories and or promotions, whatever you want to call it. And that's a new idea. That's a progressive thought from Tony. And I think it helps guys like Moxley, who wasn't doing anything for quite some time, but he was on GCW. And if you wanted your Moxley fix, you can get it there.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at guys, even like Christopher Daniels, I believe he's holding a title in Defy out in the Pacific.
He's wrestled Nick Wayne. Yep.
Right. So like you've got guys who are kind of getting their reps in out there. And I love how AEW allows dudes to do that, because it keeps a close tie to the independent scene, which I feel like while WWE has kind of shunned that and they want to take athletes out of the norm and just put them through their cookie cutter system. Right. I like that AEW still has that personal relationship with the independent scene and allows their guys to help elevate. Because when you have a Christopher Daniels or a Moxley and GCW, you're putting eyes on all of the little guys on those shows. So I think that's a big positive for AEW.
Everybody's pay goes up at that point too.
Yep.
Right. It feels like a bigger deal. These shows like a Nick Wayne, everyone wants to talk about how great he is. Only reason he's talented beyond belief, but he's getting to work with guys like a Chris Daniels and other talented guys on the indies and helping you over time. I think the biggest piece that's missing from Dark and Elevation is truly having these competitive matches. You're getting the reps, but it's much different when you go to Dynamite because you're having these one-sided WWF primetime level matches that are just squashes. And it's great to have your reps in front of an audience. And it's the same audience that is eventually going to see Dynamite. But it's a lot different when you're not working a competitive match and you're just there to squash the talent and get your spots in, brother.
That's why what you said makes a lot of sense, Chad, with the leveled system, the tiered system. It's like minor leagues in baseball. You have your squash matches on a low dark elevation. You start having competitive matches with other people. And then you can have guys like Moxley come down and do one every once in a while to draw eyes. It's such a good idea. They should absolutely do that.
Well, they've kind of toyed with a little bit. Like they have had Dark Elevation specific storytelling. Like I think of Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela had a really fun little storyline on there that I enjoyed. Like they have toyed with it. I wish they would bring that out more where you're really tuning into Elevation for the stories, just like Dynamite. Yep. I think they could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge part of what they need to be doing and making people watch with a purpose. I mean, at this point, I feel like Rampage is almost, you just read the results, and I love AEW. I only tune in due to if I read like, oh, that match was awesome, you have to check it out. And you know, I'm as hardcore as it comes. So if I'm feeling that way, what's the casual feeling like?
Right.
Yep. And there's the other content too. I mean, you can get there. We talk about shoulder content all the time. I mean, you have Sammy's vlog, you have Being the Elite. I mean, there's so much.
They do a good job of getting some of the guys out on those vlogs that aren't getting Dynamite attention, which puts them kind of in your consciousness. But I'm with you guys. Like, just to answer the original debate question, I don't think it's too bloated. It's a little bloated, but I don't think it's beyond a few tweaks really honing it in and fixing it. So
there is some fat to be trimmed. And I think we're seeing that some of the lower level guys that are starting to be released. I mean, it started with Jimmy Havoc from back in the day. I know he had his personal issues, but seeing guys get released, it was almost bizarre seeing a press release that someone was released and not signed. So we have to be getting used to that at this point. It's a weird dynamic that a company, they were adding, and eventually you have to subtract.
Yep.
So,
and they've got a good roster to trim from, you know, and I don't like, a lot of people are out there. They're like, it's the people, they want to jump all over you. The WWE lifers. It's like, see, they're going to start releasing. What are you going to do now? I'm like, dude, that's fucking pro wrestling, man. Like, I'm not living in a dream world. Like we've
been doing this for decades, man.
Right.
And
it's good for both. I mean, it brings eyes to AEW right now. Although people want to claim a victory for WWE and those WWE lifers want to say that Cody leaving is a bad thing, it's a good thing for AEW as well, because it's bringing people upwards and taking his spot. So you want to talk about moving upward? Cody took a large portion of that card up, no matter what he was doing, and now that space is relieved for somebody else. And it could be Malachi, it could be whoever, but someone is moving up.
That's the way we'll dive in a couple debate questions about that. But I
don't want to touch too far on Cody.
Just one thing on just what you said though. Like you're talking about him elevating. Like, would we have had an Eddie Kingston without Cody?
Right.
So
that's the open challenge. Or Ricky Starks too.
Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, both of those guys owe a lot to Cody putting them over. I feel like it's not like he just walked in and now we're all supposed to be like, fuck Cody Rhodes. I love what he did.
Same.
And I think he put a lot of people over, and everything is good, man. Everything's good with this.
Yeah. You guys ready? I mean, you guys want to move on to our next one?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we'll move on to the next topic of the evening, which is fantasy booking. Who should be the next 3 AEW world champions and why?
Now, Steve, this is your
question.
Kick it off, man. Lay the groundwork.
So I will start, and I've been pounding this drum for quite some time. I think MJF, it's time. He needs to be the one to beat Hangman. I know that there are some people that believe Adam Cole should win the title at Revolution. I'm not one of those people. I think the timing is right to put the title on MJF because I think it's a key piece to tell the rest of the story that's going on with Wardlow. I think to make Wardlow transition to be a main event star and a superstar that he potentially could be, it needs to have the world title involved. And whether MJF is running away from Wardlow, the title needs to be involved because I think if you have this feud where Wardlow beats the crap out of MJF and it's this great pop, eventually he gets lost in the card and can wind up being a monster like Lance Archer, the face version of Lance Archer, just beating guys up, and then what happens next? I think you really have to have MJF have a long run. Wardlow will stick with him until then. So, I mean, I know that they've been sizzling on this for quite some time, and it's got to be put on the back burner because I think right now we see he helped him beat CM Punk, and Wardlow's back in the camp. We see his facial expressions, whatever. And I think Wardlow should be the one to beat MJF. And I know that's not popular with the top-heavy talent in the company. I think Wardlow should be the guy to beat MJF. And then my third guy was really challenging. I sat there and looked, and I was like, there's guys like Punk, Danielson. You got another guy, other guys in the company, maybe Moxley should have another run. But I truly believe if they really want to take to the next level, I think it should be Keith Lee. And I think I love Keith Lee, and I think what WWE had in him was what they've been looking for in every single talent. He's big, he's agile, he's charismatic, he's great on the mic, and AEW struck gold with him. And yes, was he a little bit out of shape in his debut? Yes, potentially. I think he would admit that himself, but he didn't miss a step in the ring. I thought he was great. And I think WWE will be kicking themselves long down the road. I think he has potential to be a superstar. And it's hard to say he'd be someone like Stone Cold, like where WCW let him go. But I think it could be that type of level because we haven't seen the best of Keith Lee yet, and that's scary.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
Yep.
You want to go, Sneed, or you want me to take it?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll put my three.
Okay.
So my three, the way that I have it booked, I have it going Adam Cole taking it from Hangman, a face Kenny Omega coming back and having a big program with Adam Cole.
I love that.
And then MJF taking it from a face Omega. So
it's like you read my mind.
Yeah, you know what's so funny? Sneed did the same three I was thinking, and I was thinking MJF at the end. I don't think
it's time to put it on MJF right now. I don't think he needs it right now.
And
he definitely doesn't need it for sure. He's the most over character in AEW, arguably, and that's without the world title. So I can see your point there for sure.
Because I think because by the time Adam Cole has a run with it, after he takes it from Fantasy, after he takes it from Hangman, he's going to have time to have a run with it, and it's time for Omega to come back. And what a perfect way to put Omega back than when he comes back as a face and revisits what happened right before he left when he was addressing the Bucks and Adam Cole.
And he becomes the first two-time AEW world champion.
Right.
I'm with you. I will go even further with it. I think Adam Cole beats Hangman through shenanigans, and I think through him beating this, we also see him stab the Bucks in the back. We see him really turn up into this Adam Cole with an edge, a bad guy. Omega returns. That feud picks up where it kind of left off. Omega, I think with being gone so long, the fans are going to want to cheer him, so he comes back as a natural babyface. Goes against Cole, eventually beats Cole. MJF comes, takes the title from Omega. He can gloat that he beat the best bout machine, that he's the man to do it. It's kind of the feud that that finally puts to rest. He's better on the mic than he is in the ring. That will be the feud to kind of raise him to that level. He's the champion. Going into 2024, the bidding war of 2024, he's the champ.
Yeah.
Now, and he's using that as leverage. You bring Keith Lee in. Keith Lee takes the title from MJF after a long reign, and the person to take the belt from Keith Lee after really establishing this dominant faction is Malachi Black. That would be my five.
I love it.
I'm signing up for that, Chad.
But penciled in there, is there any sort of short reign? I know AEW has been, every champion has had an extensive reign. I guess you would consider Hangman, if he loses at Revolution, one of the shortest. I mean, it would be the shortest reign in AEW history, but still comparatively to what WWE has done and other companies, it wouldn't be a short reign at all. I mean, he won in November.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It should be their shortest one pay-per-view to the next. Nobody
Eventually,
has their,
somebody's got to have a short reign. Eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
and maybe
There's
even if
gonna
he
have to
can,
be a transitional champion there at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, because eventually even Hangman, he can become the first guy to win the title twice, and it's their own homegrown guy to do it twice
Right.
if they
Yeah.
don't do it with Omega. But Omega would be a great choice as a face.
Well,
I
my
would
whole
love
reason of the MJF argument, and I understand, like, I agree with you guys completely. I would sign up for that 100%, Chad. I think that would be amazing, and that ride would be fun. But the reason why I'm so gung-ho on MJF and Wardlow is I think it is a key component of that story. And if they want Wardlow to make that next step, I think if there's no title involved and there's no stake, that's just not reputation and blood feud, it doesn't resonate the same way. Because I look at the feud as being typecast after the Batista Triple H WrestleMania 21. And the reason why Batista, among others, because Batista was very talented for who he was as a big man, but one of the reasons he got over so huge is because he was wrestling in the main event and took the championship from Triple H and made people believe. I think Wardlow has to be that guy. Otherwise, his face turn is going to fall on deaf ears eventually. So
I love that you're tying in the Wardlow, like, I mean, to have MJF take the title and then Wardlow be the guy to take it off of him.
right.
I would be all in for that. That would elevate that story so much. The only thing I worry about with that is I feel like fans right now are already restless about, come on, Wardlow, do fucking turn.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
You know, like that's the only thing that I feel like would fans wait for that. They would have to find a way to stretch that story and make us like further dive into it and not get so burnt out on it.
And I know it was Atlantic City, it was a hot crowd and all that last week, but people were chanting Wardlow in the cadence of Goldberg for the first time ever. So
Yeah.
he's as hot as he's going to be, I guess, like you're saying. So you might as well strike while the iron's hot. But if I had my way, I wouldn't have done it. I would have waited and put it on the back burner much longer.
You know who makes this question very, very difficult for me is I think Wardlow is 100% a future world champion. I think they're building him. He's going to be one of the biggest baby faces in the company, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
But the two people that make this question really fucking hard, man, is Bryan Danielson and CM Punk.
Right.
Because I'm like, at any moment, Tony could infiltrate them into the title picture and give them the title.
Yeah.
Now, like we see, the Omega thing, my pick of Omega beating Adam Cole, that's the one I'm most like, I don't know about. I do think MJF is the third in the line. I think we'll get two more champions before we get MJF as champ. But like the Bryan Danielson Punk situation is literally like, who gets those titles? Does either of those guys get the title at any point? Do they need the title at any point? Like, how are they going to handle those guys with the world title picture?
It's certainly interesting. And I look at Punk's role in AEW being a lot like Piper for a bit. Like he's one of those guys. It's a top talent. He's a main event star. Whoever's working a program with him gets elevated. That just, he doesn't need the title. But at the same time, if you want the AEW brand to go global, CM Punk is a much larger star than anyone else that we just talked about. He's the guy that transcends pop culture and wrestling. People know his name, and I think that goes a long way in deciding who's world champion. That's not my be-all, end-all, but I'm sure eventually you want someone who can go on talk shows and take that title elsewhere. I'm not sure if like Wardlow is that guy yet. Hopefully he gets there, but you got to have that pop culture star like a Punk is and bring it to the next level. And
I feel like having Danielson and Punk, when you look at the lineage of that world title, having two names like that be champions makes
100%.
that belt. Because right now we've got Jericho, all-timer, and then you got Mox, phenomenal.
Right.
And then Omega. And of course, Hangman's the first kind of homegrown young gun guy. But like those first three, that is like a powerhouse of champions. And you throw a Danielson, a Punk in there, it just fits. Like when we're looking back 20 years from now at who was the champions, those names are just epic names.
And I think timing had to be right because I don't think Danielson taking the title off Hangman was the right time because you didn't want Danielson coming in and running roughshod over your whole roster. And he's the WWE guy and it makes all your guys look like geeks. So they had to have Hangman get the win. I'm a huge Danielson fan. And as a mark, I was sitting there like, I need Danielson as champion. I want him as champion. But the booking decision was so perfect. I mean, the draw and then having, Hangman win in such a dramatic way was perfect in my opinion. It took Hangman to I made him a huge star from my eyes. But again, I'm looking at it as a diehard, so it's hard to say.
Yeah,
Tom,
I'd love
who
to
you
see
got?
Danielson. I want Danielson to get in there with Omega for the title. They need to have some awesome title matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
You know,
not done. They're not finished.
No, they're not
No.
done. And can you imagine? Like, I think it would be great if Danielson had the belt when Omega challenges her, because originally Danielson was challenging Omega, chasing him with the belt. Then he lost it. Now reverse it, and then Danielson can be like, "No, man, you have to work your way back up. You lost and you left. You have to prove
Right.
yourself now." Like they were going to make him prove himself when he first came in to get the title match. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Another fun, interesting thing right now that it depends on if it really gets legs is this whole Danielson Mox thing. That
Yeah.
if they chose to really go at that, that could become something bigger than what we even expect it to be. Like if you see Mox and Danielson really, you know, we get like a 2-man power trip type of thing, and they bring in those Lee Moriartys and Daniel Garcias and those two, and we get a faction with them. I mean, who knows? Like they start collecting titles. Who knows what could happen?
But that's one of those things about making meaningful matches without the titles involved, and that makes all of a sudden Danielson and Moxley are on your TV every night. Even if they're not wrestling, Lee Moriarty could be wrestling, and Moxley and Danielson are just in their corner and hyping them up in a backstage segment. So it has legs, like you're saying. I think it could be awesome. And I know eventually they're going to get to Danielson and Moxley, and I feel like it's going to be Revolution. But I think, like you're saying, I think it should wait, because I think there's a lot of good story in there where we want the match. I want Moxley and Danielson to beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
But I think tagging it is a dynamic I never considered. Their styles are so diametrically different that it's fun. I mean, Danielson can work that gritty style with the, you know, obviously no holds barred. He can go out there and do that with anybody. But it's cool to see Moxley working with a technician like Danielson. I think would bring out a cool side of him.
Yeah, the technician and the brawler. It's a great combo.
Yeah, and like I'm kind of torn on Cole. I love Cole. He's so young. I don't know if he needs the title yet. They could even hold off on putting it on him.
Yeah, I think there's a very, very good possibility Hangman just keeps the title. Like
I love Cole. And I liked his new version of him that we've seen the last couple of weeks. Like this is much more intriguing than what we saw for the first, few months of his run there. So
I just wonder, like we've heard Tony Khan kind of addressing the fans being critical of Adam Cole, like he was better in NXT, he's being played for jokes, and Tony has heard that, and I know he's commented on Adam, he's mentioned like his record and kind of went back at those fans that say that, and that's why kind of stuck in the back of my head, is this something that Tony Khan's going to be like, you guys think you know what I'm doing with Adam Cole and you have no idea what I'm about to do?
Absolutely. I think he took it personal a little bit when Adam Cole was getting the critique, and this side of Adam Cole is going to be really awesome to watch. If you followed him in Ring of Honor and you followed him in Japan, we've seen this side of Adam Cole where he can go out there and work a style that is, we haven't seen that yet from him.
Right.
But WWE missed the boat on him as well. I talked about Keith Lee being a huge superstar. The fact that Adam Cole isn't, 6'5", WWE couldn't look past that. He's the most over guy. Haven't been to 2 AEW shows, been to an NXT show. The guy elicits the biggest reaction in the arena, and that can't be discounted. Authentic reactions with audiences, it doesn't happen anymore.
It's fucking rare, man. It's
and Adam Cole in their hands. So I don't know what they were thinking. And Triple H has to be just like, hands up. These are his babies that are going out there and
so many of his babies. I mean, like, and it's funny. Me and Sneed talked about it last week on the flagship show. Like, AEW's taking those NXT talents, and they're pretty much, it's not like they're taking them and then they're restarting them and repackaging. They're taking them exactly the way they were built in NXT and bringing them over and being like, we're going to honor that history. Like with even Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole kind of acknowledging the beef that they had. Like it's genius. It's like, why, the groundwork is laid. We're just going to bring it in and up it.
Yeah, and Keith Lee was wearing the same attire he wore on Raw. Like,
right.
They didn't have to change. To me, you didn't change anything about Keith Lee. I think he was ready for the main roster. You look at that Royal Rumble in 2020 where he went face-to-face with Lesnar and the fans went nuts in Houston. They had something with Lee, and for whatever reason, he rubbed people the wrong way. But then, I think the Grinch said it in the movie, one man's trash is another man's potpourri. That's Keith Lee right now, man. And he's going to walk out smelling like 1,000 roses.
He's going to be a big, big, big star for sure.
Absolutely. Tom, I don't know if did we get your 3?
I mean, I agreed with you. I loved yours at first, but now I'm thinking I don't know if I want Cole to get it yet. It's so tough. It's so fun. It's such,
and if
you
Cole
can't
doesn't
really
take
go
it-
wrong.
And if Cole doesn't take it, who takes it?
I wouldn't
Off
mind
of
seeing
Hangman.
go Danielson, Omega, and then MJF.
Ooh, see, that's totally doable too. The
Yeah.
Danielson Hangman's already built in.
Yeah.
Then you get Omega coming back in to reignite the Danielson feud. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that either. That'd be fun.
I just want MJF to have the belt going into the bidding war of
Yeah.
2024.
2024.
That's
That'd be
what I
great.
want.
I
on
agree.
that a little bit.
Yeah, that I feel like that is something like, oh, you want to bid for this guy? He's our champion, so you're going to have to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not going anywhere.
All right. Well, you guys want to move into the final topic?
Let's do it.
Let's
This is a
do
big
it.
one.
Here we go. All right. Final topic of the evening. Cody Rhodes leaving AEW. Is it a work or is it a shoot? If it's a shoot, will he land in WWE? And if he does, how does it go?
Oh man, this is
I'll start it off for me. It's very easy. It's a work. It's very easy for me.
I can't imagine it not being a work.
It's work.
Especially we keep going back to what Cody said. You're going to see a story come in like that we haven't seen before. This fits right into that. It fits right into it. The way Tony Khan even signed his memo made me think it was a work. Head booker, creative, like he put all those titles down there, and that I found very weird that he had to sign like 5 different titles. It's just, and then they both released their statements within minutes of each other. Like, hello, like they were talking. Like, just too many things are telling me it's a work.
There is such a great argument to be had that it is a work. And I know there's so many people that's like, everyone always wants to say it's a work in wrestling, but this is a shoot. And I think there's a lot of stuff laid where you're like, this could totally be a work. And I think they have laid a lot of groundwork that would totally get me to buy into that. But they have yet to show me that they have the balls to pull off a work of this size that I can't buy it yet. Like I want it to be a work so bad, man. So bad I want it to be a work. But if it's a work, this has to be done on such a high level. This is a work that only 3 people could know about. Tony, Brandy, Cody. Everyone has to be worked. They have to work everyone from the boys in the back of the locker room to the dirt sheet writers to even WWE. This has to be one of those situations where Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes was in a back room and they said, okay, we're going to play everyone. You go, we're not going to sign that contract. You go out into the free market. You go talk to WWE. Let people know that you're out there talking to them. Let the press take it and run with it. And then at Revolution, he comes out, and he's already laid the groundwork where he said, Tony Khan might be the bank, but I built the bank. He comes back in at Revolution, part of a super heel faction, goes back on his promise, says he's coming after the title. Maybe he's the guy that takes the belt off of Hangman. Like, that's all possible, but I can't buy that it's a work.
What if part of the deal is he goes to WWE for a year? Tony Khan says, go to WWE for a year.
That's possible too.
Yeah.
And then you come back. And look at how much attention this is bringing to AEW already. No matter what's happening, this is bringing them attention. Whether it's a work, whether it's a shoot, they're getting publicity.
And when Cody Rhodes says, I'm going to take you on a ride that's never been done before, and he's always talking about subverting the traditional norms of pro wrestling storytelling, and he wants to do something big and out there. Me and Steve always talk about how this is the one thing AEW has lacked, is that one story that is completely earth shattering. The NWO storyline, the Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon storyline, those storylines that really bring in complete casuals like, whoa, what is going on? This has the ability to do that, but I think to pull off stories like that in wrestling, you have to go so above and beyond, and they've yet to do that. So I'm leery to say it's a work. I want it to be, but I can't.
I'm going to agree with you, Chad. I mean, the amount of effort it would take would be similar to the Montreal Screwjob being a work. And I err on the side of reasonable doubt with the Montreal Screwjob. So don't get me wrong. I want to believe this is a work. I just think that there's too many people involved. I think there's too many conversations. And you got to keep in mind that the people that are on WWE side, it's not easy to work those guys. They've been in the business for how many years that they're going to just accept Cody with open arms. If it's a work, it means both sides are working together, and that's the forbidden door that we want to talk about. And maybe, just maybe, WWE wants this to happen, and they want to work together, and they're going to build up wrestling from the ground up. Because if you believe the Montreal Screwjob, if you want to pull that thread and say that that was a work, that's what started the Attitude Era. So maybe they're trying to start another boom period here at wrestling, because now you're blurring the line. This is a modern day blurring the line of wrestling and what's real, what's not, who's right, who's wrong. Is Cody with WWE, with AEW? This has potential to be something huge. Having watched wrestling for this long, I have my doubts. I want to live in a world where WWE and AEW work together to buzz the business. I'm open to being worked, and there's no shame in that. I know people are like, they get offended when they say, "Oh, you were worked." I want to be. That's why I'm
100%, dude.
I'm waiting to be worked.
It's the new kayfabe.
And then I think erring on the side of this being a shoot, Cody cares about his brand, and the rift between Tony and Cody is larger than what it was originally perceived. I think Cody believes, I think Chick Foley said it on your January 3rd show, and I was going back doing my research. He believes that he's a 10, but he's really a 7, but because his perception, he's actually a 6. It's so true. Like, his ego is much bigger, and he wants to act like he's not Triple H. And he wants to act like he's not Jeff Jarrett in WCW. And I know he didn't have the same power those guys have. But if you believe you are bigger than everybody else, eventually you're going to rub people the wrong way. I think the big thing about why he's going to WWE, and I think this is a huge thing, if he's personally wanting to go there, he's wrestling with the ghost of Dusty Rhodes being disrespected in WWE. And I think a Rhodes holding the WWE Championship would be a huge feather in his cap, that he can make his father proud and say, you know, after all this, at the embarrassment with the polka dots, they took the Rhodes name and made it into a joke made you this guy dancing with polka dots, and you're going to be working as the WWE champion. I think that means so much to Cody Rhodes, and maybe the negotiations took his imagination so far that he can't resist it. I want to believe it's a work. I think it's a shoot, though.
But on that same note, though, as a Rhodes, how do you go in trusting a McMahon?
You can't. No.
How does he go in?
That's very true.
How does he go in and say, you know, he's promised this stuff, but what's a fucking promise from a McMahon to a Rhodes? What is that?
And
nothing because you're going to go and put yourself because you're going under the thumb of Vince McMahon. He's going under the thumb of Vince McMahon, whether he is promised any type of control or anything. He's not going to have any control.
Bullshit. No,
there's nothing. He's not going to have that. It's going to be all whatever Vince wants to do. And Vince is going to sit and do this and say whatever he's going to say to get him there. But at the end of the day, it's a Rhodes and a McMahon. And we all saw what happened when $1 Million Man had his manager Virgil. You know?
Oh yeah,
no, true. It goes deep.
It's deep,
decades long.
Yeah, and then Dusty,
Cody. You want to go back to it being a work, and now you guys got me all over the place. Cody could be infiltrating WWE to get back at Vince all these years. Like that's another piece of it. As well.
Yeah. And Dusty, like everyone always goes back to the NXT Dusty. Well, he was in NXT, dude. That's Triple H. Triple H is a self-professed, his favorite wrestling company of all time was NWA. That Southern wrestling is what Triple H loved. That's not Vince hiring Dusty. That's Vince when he was letting Triple H have his own little sandbox and do his own little thing. Triple H is responsible for the Performance Center. Yeah. All of that was Triple H. So it blows me away. Like that's one of the biggest things. And I know business is business and wrestlers go anywhere where the money's at. I get that. But the biggest shocker to me of this Cody Rhodes thing, it's like the reports come out so quick that he's going back to WWE. And I get he's a promoter. I get that he was all about AEW, but it's just like, man, really? Like that company that you left because they weren't treating you right. You know how they treat guys. You've had countless promo after countless promo in AEW talking about that, interviews, and now you're just going back there for a paycheck. Like,
it's gonna make the throne smashing look a little suspect.
Yeah.
Like,
And what about that last promo he cut? Talking about building up AEW. Like, this is his baby. This is in his blood.
that's why it's,
You know,
fishy.
if he doesn't leave WWE in the
Work.
beginning, we don't have this AEW
Work,
now.
man.
It's gotta be a work. It's gotta be.
Those are the things that make me like, what went wrong? What happened beyond just, it's got to be more than just money.
And they say he wasn't happy. The thing I read a little. Yes, he doesn't like that he's not head of creative.
That Forbes article that released where Tony Khan did the interview, and the quote was, he is the GM, the booker. He's pretty much a one-man show. And if Cody's ego is as big as everyone wants to say it is, that rubbed him the wrong way, because he feels like AEW would not be what it is without Cody Rhodes and what he brought into it from the beginning, and the Bucks and Omega. But Cody was the head on Mount Rushmore that sold out Ring of Honor for All Out or All In. He was the guy. And if him going on the indies and making the list, that is the origin story of AEW. And he just ups and leaves. Like, I want to believe it's a work, but maybe Tony really rubbed him the wrong way when he wants to be, you know, the de facto leader in the locker room, and it's no longer Cody's show.
See, that's another thing that none of us know really. I mean, we're not around Cody Rhodes, but like, there's this kind of stigma with fans that he has this monster ego, and I get it. He comes through the middle. He doesn't come out a tunnel. He has this big pomp and circumstance, Triple H type of intro. I get that. But beyond just his in-ring character, kind of how we all feel about that, like, I just don't see him being someone that's like, well, you're saying you're the head booker and I have no control. Well, I'm going, like, dude, right. He's such a big part. Like, if you listen to his interviews, he never comes across as someone who's like, give me praise. I did this. He's a very, like, he always puts it on the other guys. Like, yeah, I'm a part of this, but Jericho's just as much. Right. He's never the one like me.
Watch the Sammy vlogs.
Right.
I mean, if you watch the Sammy vlogs, he has a blast with those guys.
It just seems so odd, but I guess it all does come down to money at the end. But man,
and this is a clip I have for Sessions coming out that I saved from when they inducted Dusty into the Hall of Fame, and he said wrestling is so much bigger than any one man. And now we're supposed to believe he's grounded, man. Yes. And that was before he was anybody. Like, when I first saw that induction, I'm like, this Cody guy, he's going to be good. I loved his induction speech for his father. Like, he came across so good in that. And like, I went back and I took that clip to play tomorrow, or Friday.
But maybe they felt like they booked themselves in a corner, because at this point, if you want to hold up stipulations, and I know Tony Khan and AEW feel like stipulations are important, and WWE has bastardized them for the longest time, where a fan doesn't believe that a stipulation means anything. But it means something here in AEW, and they made the choice to book him to not win the AEW championship. He was TNT champion. What else is there for Cody to do in AEW other than put over other guys, which he's done a beautiful job of doing? I mean, you want to talk about Brody Lee, Malachi Black, Andrade, Sammy Guevara. Like, he's not a guy that's going out there with his golden shovel and squashing people. But I think people are just rubbed the wrong way, because I think he really blurs the line of, is he the go big character on the show? Is he Cody Rhodes the character? Or who's Cody Rhodes the human? And people can't differentiate what's going on the TV show. And I think that's what makes him a really dynamic character. And I think that is more of a compliment than a negative thing for him.
And that's why if he leaves for 1 year to go to WWE, it gives his character so much more meaning when he comes back to AEW next year.
I'm gonna throw a little wrench into it.
Okay.
Why does it have to be WWE? What if no, but listen, what if he goes and does the Matt Cardona thing?
But see, the Matt Cardona thing is originally the Cody Rhodes thing. He did it first. Matt Cardona is actually doing the Cody Rhodes thing.
What if he goes to NWA, the company his father built, and him and Cardona build that fucking company up?
He goes and does that, and Ring of Honor's coming back.
Or goes to GCW and wrestles for the GCW championship, or tags with Jeff Jarrett.
I think everyone jumping on immediately. I'm sure he's having those talks, but why go straight there?
Listen, if it was,
I don't think he's going to WWE. Yeah, I really don't. I can't see a world where that happens, man. I don't see where it makes any sense.
It
They
seems
dropped
like
the
a bit of a.
ball.
I don't like using this because guys, go where the money is, make your money, do your thing. This is a hard business. Your body takes its toll. You want to make millions of dollars, go fucking do it. But at the same time, I hate to use this word, but it's a bit of a sellout move. You talk all this shit. It'd be like Punk. If Punk didn't come to AEW and he went back to WWE, I'd be like, dude, what a sellout. Like, you talk all this shit and all they got to do is write this big number on this check and you go there. Like, really?
I think it has a lot to do with the WWE Championship. I think if they looked at negotiations were had, he's wrestling without an AEW contract. And if you go back weeks ago with the Royal Rumble, there was rumored that he might be there and people were like, haha, no way. And then maybe that notion got to Cody and then WWE were whispering in his ear and saying, you're due for a huge push. We'll put the title on you following WrestleMania. You'll be the one to take it off of Roman. If that's said to him, has he not at least considered it for everything that his dad's been through? Being WWE champion still has meaning to it, despite them making the title feel meaningless and the TV product is shit. The title has a lineage that goes back years and years, and I think his dad would be very proud of him to do that. And the NWA Championship, go all the way back to All In. The title meant really nothing at the time, but that moment was probably, I think Cody would say, the most important moment of his career.
So if it is a shoot and he does go to WWE, how does it go? Do you think he gets elevated into that title picture like that? Here's how I see it. 3 to 6 months of like, wow, this guy's back. And then it slowly tapers off. And we find him in mixed tag matches with Miz and Maurice and Brandy. And he's upset again and he leaves again.
Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn.
Yeah, he comes back to AEW and it's a big. That's the best thing about him leaving is that it helps AEW by this will be the first time one of their guys left and has a homecoming return a couple years down the road.
Right.
And make no mistake about it. If he does leave, he will be back. He's not gone for good.
If he's gone for a year or more and comes back to AEW, he will come back to a hero's welcome. It will be one of the loudest pops when he returns in AEW. All the fans that booed him wouldn't boo him anymore, I think.
Can you imagine, though, if it is a work and he, say, wins the World Championship, either Universal or WWE at Backlash or wherever, at SummerSlam, and he has a moment where him and Tony Khan, like the final piece of their plans in place, and he takes that title, lawsuit be damned, and shows up on AEW television with the championship, people's heads would explode. And I'm not saying that would happen. But holy shit.
I mean, Tony Khan, I could see him just like, do it. I'll write out the checks. I don't care.
Those are the things that I hope happen. Like, I know we're fucking marks. We're sitting here just like nerding out, like fantasy booking it into oblivion. But those are the type of things I feel like all the hardcores long for. This monumental, earth-shaking, just genre bending, crazy ass thing to happen. And we always book it bigger than it always turns out to be, but God, man, if this is a work and something even remotely close to that happening would happen, I would literally be shitting my pants.
This goes well beyond Forbidden Door stuff, Jay White showing up for an appearance Dynamite. This would be blow the wall off. We now have a full wrestling multiverse that's in comparison to Marvel.
Yes.
Where all of a sudden the boundaries are removed and people can go where they want. It's a free market. I think wrestling is, we move from the territories to eventually WWF monopolize everything. We move towards like some indie companies developing. WCW was murdered, then we still have a monopoly. We may be moving towards more of not a territory, but more of this like fluid market where since we live in such a different age, wrestling should adapt. And I think maybe we're seeing a form of wrestling we haven't seen before. And it may just be, this is the start of it, and Cody's at the helm, like usual.
I wish you were right, but I don't think there's a chance of that happening with WWE.
WWE's so locked in, man.
Yeah. But Cody, he wins the belt. He shows up on AEW with it, and he said, I wouldn't challenge for the AEW title. But here I am now with the WWE title.
There's people listening right now that are like fucking marks.
That's okay.
I take pride in that goddamn term. I am a mark. I don't give a shit.
I am too, man. I am too.
It's fun, man. It's more fun being a mark than not being a mark. Now,
100%.
What? Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say something. I lost what I was going to say.
So, Sneed, what? Real quick before we go, I got to, because you didn't really get into it. You just said it's a work. Why do you think? Why were you so quick to just? It's a work.
Because Cody made a quote that said we're about to go on a bizarre ride like we've never been on before. He said that, and thinking about everything that we talked about, I just don't see a world where the throne smashing, the shovels, when he goes to almost do a pedigree, I don't see if he shows up in WWE after all of that, then he's a money mark and I lose respect.
Yeah.
Well, how do
WWE
WWE lifers spin this if it indeed winds up being this giant elaborate work that only Tony, Brandy, and Cody were in? How is it spun that you were taken for this ride and now the WWE Championship is in the enemy camp? I mean, we'll never know the truth if it actually happens. Maybe Vince signed off on it or whatever. There is precedent to be set. I mean, you got Shane Douglas and Eastern Championship Wrestling, and ECW was born out of that.
Medusa, even bringing.
There is precedent to be set, and it's created this paranoia for Vince McMahon for the longest time. I mean, you want to talk about Punk and Ric Flair and all the lineage that goes with the championship, and so afraid your championship will show up on the other show. Maybe it's happening right in front of his eyes. He doesn't even know it's happening.
It'd be brilliant.
Oh man!
Well, maybe we just see Stardust return with the makeup.
Yeah.
Dude, how great would it be if he does come back and in his first appearance he comes out as Stardust? Just a one-off thing. That'd be.
This is the shit I live for.
Oh, I love it.
Like these type of stories. Like this is the stuff I live for. I don't care that he's leaving. I think if it is all a shoot,
yeah,
I think it's good for both companies.
Oh,
I think, like you said, Steve, somebody steps up into the vacuum that he leaves, which is good. You know, that we talk about, is it top heavy a little bit? If he's gone, hey, that opens up a whole other thing. My last thing I'll say is the only thing, if it is a shoot, the thing that bums me out the most, where am I going to get my weekly Arn Anderson fix?
Right.
Yeah, he's gonna have to manage somebody else.
Put Ethan Page with him.
Yeah,
I'd sign up for that. We need Arn Anderson at ringside.
Yeah,
sweater vest, clipboard, everything. We need it all.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts before we head out for the night?
I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I've been watching you guys from afar for quite some time now. I am a huge fan of your work. Keep up the great work, and you're making wrestling fun again, and that's all you can ask for.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, man.
That means a lot, man.
We would love to have you back on,
yeah.
Collaborate further on maybe even some other things. So we appreciate the kind words, man.
You always have a seat at the tavern, man.
Absolutely. You know what? I got my drink. I've been sipping on it. This has been a lot of fun. And I have AEW on right now. If you haven't seen, if you're going to fast forward these commercials, it's been pretty good so far. But Danielson and Lee Moriarty has been a great match.
Awesome. Well, let everybody know where they can find Acefield Retro.
So you can find me at Acefield Retro on Instagram. I post daily, memes, cards, discussion to be had. You can message me on there. And also check out Acefield Retro on YouTube, where we are doing live shows. Tonight I'll be going live with Nick the Comic Nerd following Dynamite, discussing, reacting, probably talking about more Cody Rhodes stuff. And also, those are the only two spots you can find me. But you can interact with me on the comments, DM me. I'm very open to collaborating with anybody, like Turnbuckle Tavern. I was on with Boney Khan from Coming Down the Aisle. The Wrestling Couch I was on with Jimmy the Prince. So anyone that wants to collaborate, have a conversation. That's what I love about wrestling, getting people involved and having a conversation, because people are so stuck in their ways. Let's talk. If we disagree, it's fine.
Absolutely.
Let's have a conversation about it.
Absolutely.
That's why we debate.
Yep. It's always
what this whole show is about.
That's it, man. All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for the evening. Make sure you guys are tuning in to everything that Steve just talked about. Make sure you guys are tuning into the Turnbuckle Tavern. You can find your fix at theturnbuckletavern.com for all of your tavern needs. Tom, get your shit in. You didn't get to do it last week. Go ahead and get it in.
Turnbuckle Sessions every Friday. Me and Mike Bellcaster. You can follow me, Twitter and Instagram, the OG Fit Kid.
All right. Fading it out. Wrap it up, bud. All right, court is dismissed.